My name is Gerhard, and I'm a cryptozoologist, or some people refer to me as a monster hunter. For the past 2 decades, I've investigated reports of mysterious creatures and legendary beasts all over the world, including the Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and the Chupacabra. Come join me now on epic voyages as we go in search of mysterious creatures. The reason that I go out looking for these basically mysterious and unverified animal species is because it's a passion of mine. But more importantly, I think that it's very important for us as human beings to realize that there are many things out here, even just beyond our own backyards, that we just fully don't understand. Science is making new discoveries all the time, of course, new animal species. The science books are constantly being rewritten. And this is a part of that process. Now, as a cryptozoologist, I investigate things that most scientists are hesitant or reluctant to seek answers to, simply because these topics are so beyond the pale and so unbelievable that no credible scientist would risk their reputation or their job by becoming involved in these. And yet there is evidence that things like Bigfoot and other monsters lurk in the woods. Yes, I'm talking about soft evidence mostly, thousands of eyewitness reports. But this is what motivates me, because people are obviously seeing something out here. And if the scientists aren't going to look for it, then I'm going to. All of these cryptids or legendary creatures that I investigate are fascinating to me, but I think the most iconic and the most important in terms of discovery is Bigfoot or Sasquatch. The possibility of a unknown hominid, something that's very human-like, lurking around in the woods, I think that type of discovery would simply be earth-shattering and monumental. Think of the kind of impact it would have on our society to know that for literally thousands of years that we've lived alongside these enormous human-like creatures, just beyond our vision, just beyond our scope of knowledge, and that these things are really out there. I mean, it really would have such a huge impact, I think, on society in general and how we view the woods. And would the woods ever be the same again? I've been very fortunate throughout the course of my life and in my investigations to travel all around the world to 26 different countries, and most of these United States. I've been very passionate about cryptozoology since I was a young boy. In fact, I first learned about Bigfoot when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and it completely changed my world. From that point on, I read everything I could on the subject of Bigfoot and other monsters. So consequently, it's become a real life's passion or obsession for me to look for these things. And for the past 2 decades, as I mentioned, I've literally traveled all over the place. I've investigated werewolves in France. I've investigated flying humanoid creatures in the caves of Mexico, strange human-like beasts in the jungles of Central and South America, giant birds in the deserts of the southwestern United States. The fact that people, many credible people and eyewitnesses from all walks of life are reporting these things to me, really inspires me to believe that there is definitely something behind it. And in short, behind every myth, I believe there is a shred of truth. Cryptozoology is sort of a fringe or a quasi-science. As I mentioned, most established scientists or scientific organizations are not willing to become involved in this type of research. And yet science has been proven wrong many times. One of the many things that gives us a lot of hope in the world of cryptozoology is there have been many new animal discoveries over the past century. For example, the largest gorilla in the world, the mountain gorilla, was not discovered until about 1902. The Komodo dragon in 1938. The giant squid, of course, in the last 2 centuries. These were all essentially mythological creatures. They were not accepted by Western scientists until physical evidence for their existence surfaced. And I think that's what's going to happen with some of these other cryptids. Now understand that most of the evidence we have at this point is soft evidence. And by that I mean eyewitness accounts from many credible people from different walks of life. However, there is some physical evidence out there. For example, in terms of Bigfoot and other hominids, we actually have track castings, essentially plaster casts of footprints that they've left behind. And these have been studied by physical anthropologists who've sworn to their authenticity. In addition to that, we do have some photographic evidence that's controversial, things like the Patterson Bigfoot film. We do have hair samples, droppings, and so forth. There's even talk now that we do have Bigfoot DNA. So in fact, there is hard physical evidence, and as a cryptozoologist, that's what I look for. You know, I'm essentially a tracker, I'm a hunter. So I'm looking for animal spoor, signs of footprints, droppings, blood, hairs, things that can be taken into a laboratory environment and measured and compared and tested and analyzed and then accepted as real, true science. All right.
Okay.
This is the spot. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let me show you where the creatures are.
All right.
Follow me.
So somewhere around here? Can you tell me what kind of tools do you use to do this?
Well, you know, as a cryptozoologist, Pat, most of the work we do is at night because a lot of the things that we're looking for are nocturnal. There's a coyote right over here behind us. I guess you hear that.
Oh yeah, I hear it.
It's yipping at us.
Are you sure it's a coyote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
you know your coyotes.
Pretty sure
Chupacabras.
that's a coyote yip. Pat, this is my little bag of tricks that I take with me wherever I go on an expedition. So the first thing I typically do in an area is I've got a little trusty handheld GPS radio that's been all over the world with me, and this is my favorite tool because I am able to basically plot different Earth coordinates, and of course we do our research ahead of time and find out what areas are more conducive as far as habitat, things like water supply, food supply, coverage, you know, vegetation and stuff. So, and the reason I picked this spot is because there have been a lot of Bigfoot and Sasquatch reports right here on the edge of San Antonio on the northwest side. And in fact, I'm familiar with about 8 different reports over the past few years. So right now I'm looking at our waypoint, and we are essentially right on the edge of a vast wilderness area. I mean, there's literally hundreds of miles until you get to the next nearest city, which is San Antonio. So that bodes very well in terms of a large, elusive animal to have all this space, all this habitat in which to hide.
What kind of being, creature, cryptid would we find in this area?
Well, in this particular area, we have had reports of these weird chupacabra type creatures, which people generally describe as a strange, bluish gray, hairless dog-like animal with very sharp teeth and claws. And of course, an animal like that would be very adept at predating on rabbits and other small animals that we have in this area. But what's really weird is that I've received several reports of very large, almost prehistoric looking birds. Most people describe them as looking like pterodactyls, almost like flying dinosaurs. And, you know, as strange as that sounds, science has been proven wrong before. There have been what we call Lazarus taxon, animal species that were labeled extinct and then they suddenly resurfaced unexpectedly. So as unbelievable as it may seem that there could be some type of flying dinosaur type creature out here, keep in mind that millions of years ago there were animals that fit that description in this area. In fact, the largest pterodactyl ever discovered was called Quetzalcoatlus. It had a 40-foot wingspan, and its fossils were discovered just west of here. Now think about that, a giant flying reptile, almost like a crocodile with a 40-foot wingspan. It's almost like a real dragon, right?
Amazing.
Now, if we have any evidence that we find, we can mark a point.
What are the chances of something big like a Bigfoot or some kind of hominid being out here near San Antonio?
I know it sounds unbelievable, but you know, the prevalent theory on something like Bigfoot is that they're highly nocturnal. They're highly intelligent and they're highly nocturnal, and that's one of the ways that they've been able to avoid detection for so many years. I personally believe that they have very heightened senses of you know, hearing and sight and so forth, night vision, but also that they are very in tune with humans and that they realize that we are their biggest threat. You know, so you know, essentially they have chosen an adaptation that allows them to avoid humans. I call it the theory of mutual avoidance. Humans on a subconscious level, we don't want to run into Bigfoot. They're big and scary and hairy and everything that consists of our nightmares. But on the other hand, Bigfoot perhaps fears us because we have, you know, perhaps driven them to the brink of extinction. We are essentially competing for the same niche as hominids. Now this is a night vision monocular. Of course, a lot of the work we do in cryptozoology is in the darkness and at night. So we use a lot of very high-tech surveillance equipment. Now this is very basic. This is a Generation Night 2 binocular made in the Ukraine. Essentially, it has a decent range, but it's a passive infrared, so it depends heavily on other light sources from stars and moonlight and what have you. Now, sometimes when I got into the field, I prefer to use FLIR or thermal imaging, which basically reads heat signatures. Now, why is that important? Obviously, because a lot of animals are warm-blooded and they're going to give off a lot of heat. But for our purposes tonight, I've just got this simple monocular, which we're going to use for a surveillance type situation where we're going to just kind of camp out and wait. And we're going to stalk our prey stealthily here in the night. And so I can see I've got a fairly decent range here, maybe about 25, 30 yards through the thick brush, which I think is pretty good. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with these devices as well, right?
Cool. Used them a few times.
Yeah, that's my my old steady there.
Great.
It's waterproof. I might need a little focus there for your eyesight. And the other thing I have, which kind of goes really well with that, is a little, what we call a bionic ear or parabolic microphone. And this essentially is a microphone that amplifies sound signals, by several decibels, so that if there is something making a vocalization or sound in the nearby woods, we can hear that. And we'll be able to tell if we're alone out here or not. So, typically I'm going to pop this in, turn on the mic, and I am curious here to see if I pick anything up right off the bat, so turn that on.
So you're using audio enhancement?
Yes, it is
visual
an audio. It is
enhancement?
Correct.
Just increasing your chances of hearing or seeing or detecting
Absolutely.
what could be out here.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, it really is about acclimating yourself to the environment and being very patient, because obviously animals have very keen senses. They have super heightened vision and a sense of smell and hearing, so they probably already know we're here. But if we can stay quiet enough and stealthy enough, we have a good chance of seeing or hearing something over the course of the night. So.
Yeah. Are these all the tools that you usually work with?
Well, no, I use all types of photographic equipment, of course. Some of them are like motion activated, okay. So we have things like that we can essentially, like, imagine a little sentry that you can leave out in the woods for months and months and come back periodically to check. No, I use all types of technology and gadgets, but a lot of times I like to be very mobile so that I can move around easily. So this is kind of my scaled down kit. But you know what? I think we should basically go explore this area down here by the creek, because animals go down to the water at night to drink, and I think that's where we have our best chance of experiencing something.
I'm going to ask, okay. So do we have everything we need to get started?
We do. Are you ready to go hunt some cryptids?
All right, let's do it.
Let's go. Follow me, man. This way.
So tell me about this creek.
Well, this particular creek, I found some impressions on the ground that looked like tracks. But the strange thing, Pat, is that they didn't look like any animal tracks that I've ever seen, or anything, in fact, that should be indigenous to this area. They were almost cat-like, but with very distinct claws and sort of a spreading that's not what you would typically expect. So I'd just like to go down here and kind of take a look around, because it's got my curiosity piqued. And whenever I find anything that's not readily explainable, I'm all over it.
There we are, right there. Right. Okay.
Do a lot of work here at night, and so we use a lot of surveillance equipment that's adaptable to heighten our sight and our awareness, so.
Are you sure that's a coyote?
I'm Ken Gerhard, and I am the monster hunter.